what got us to the dance and what is our wheelhouse and what we really like to speak and talk about and have conversations about. And so we've had NAI coaches, JUCO coaches, Division two, Division three, NCAA Division one, Big Ten, you name it. And so we're really just trying to get the word out there on programs and people that are doing great things. And along the way, we've had quite a few New Jersey high school wrestling coaches, people that we knew and grew up with, Rob Nucci, Dan O'Cone, Jason Nace, some of those guys. And the New Jersey people really like it. And so
Yeah.
we're trying to get more and more coaches, Jersey coaches, to get back to our roots even deeper. Jimmy and I are both old school Region 6 guys. I'm sure we'll get
Yeah.
into the region alignment and that sort of
We could
stuff
talk
with you.
45 minutes about that stuff. So,
So, yeah, that's what we do over here, and we are honored and excited to chat with you and talk about your story and what you got going on now. And we're big fans of the hero's journey as well too. So we want to hear about the return to New Jersey and all that stuff because Jimmy and I go back and forth with that. Well, I'm living in South Carolina, he's in Florida, but we've been
mhm.
as far west as California and everywhere in between from Colorado and Oklahoma. So we always go back and forth with do we go back to New Jersey or do we go to Arizona or we go somewhere else? So we'll probably
Yeah,
get into the hero's journey a little bit with you as well too.
sure.
Awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's Monday night. We are back. We're going belly to belly. You know what that means. We got a wrestling coach, and we are excited to talk with a New Jersey Hall of Famer and championship winning coach, talk about his journey through the wrestling world. Before we get started, like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that button. Follow us on Instagram and all your podcast platforms. Drop a comment, let us know your thoughts, give us your feedback, join the conversation. Support the show. If you're loving anything we're doing, you're getting any value out of anything we're doing, please buy us a coffee. Every sip, every bean helps fuel that next episode. And as you know, over here at Airey Bros is about spotlighting programs and coaches we wish we knew about during our recruiting. Wrestlers, runners, student athletes alike. This episode, like all of our episodes, is for you. And if you need any training, whether it's an ultramarathon, marathon, or just couch to 5K, we got you covered. Check out Black Sheep Endurance for elite running and nutrition coaching. Now, our guest tonight, Coach Jimmy Rollins. He is in the South Jersey Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's a two-time national champion. He won a national championship at NJCAA as well as a NAIA national champ. He's a four-time All-American. He's a former Lindenwood head wrestling coach. He led the Lions to a third place finish at the NCAA Division II championships, and he is currently the Clearview High School head wrestling coach, bringing college experience and excellence to New Jersey wrestling. After a championship-laden coaching career at Lindenwood University, Coach Rollins is back in South Jersey where he's looking to build something special at Clearview High School. Tonight, we're going to talk about his journey, his coaching philosophy, college versus high school wrestling, and what it takes to build a championship mindset. Without further ado, Coach Jimmy Rollins, it is an honor and a pleasure. We do appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, it is an honor and pleasure. We always love to talk to our Jersey coaches. It makes for a very easy and enjoyable conversation. People usually get a kick out of it. Before we get too into it, though, if you have anything that you would like to promote, anywhere you want the fans to find Clearview High School, the wrestling program, maybe any clubs you got going on or helping out with, the floor is yours.
Yeah, no, it's again great to be here. We Clearview Wrestling all over Instagram, Facebooks, all that stuff. I don't run any of that stuff, so I always have other people doing it for me because I'm not the social media type of person. But no, we got a lot of great stuff. We got our own standalone facility at Clearview, which is unlike most programs at the high school level. We have it just renamed it actually the John Hughes Wrestling Facility. John was a huge part of getting this built just over 20 years ago, I believe it is now. So we got clubs like Seagull Wrestling Club, which is well known throughout the Northeast and nationally, runs out of our wrestling facility there. We got Ronnie Gentile, a former NCAA finalist for me, a state champion from Paulsboro, who does a lot of private lessons and things like that throughout there. So having Johnny Van Brill, all the guys at Seagulls, Ronnie, we've really changed our facility from a wrestling facility during the winter to a 12-month facility now since I've been here. Since it's there, you might as well use it. So we always are bringing in clinicians. We've had Brian Pearsall in last summer, Ty Whalen, a Clearview grad, always coming in to do things. I'll do some clinics. We'll have Ronnie, Johnny. We just got a new assistant Olympian, Rob Eiter, who joined my staff this year. So we're looking to utilize Rob and share some of that knowledge that he has as a coach, and obviously an Olympian as well. So there's tons of things that we're starting to really build and grow here.
That's awesome. There's probably not too many high schools, especially in New Jersey, let alone around the country, that can claim they have an Olympian on their staff.
I don't think there's too many. No.
That's awesome. Was he, I guess he was still in and around Philadelphia area after UPenn?
Yeah, he was, and Rob and I connected. I'm actually pretty close with a lot of people at Arizona State. So, I had Matt Lynch and Pat Suter in our golf tournament with a teammate of theirs who was the heavyweight at ASU, who I actually coached with in Iowa, that small world of wrestling community. And, we were talking, and I ended up, just calling Rob and saying, what the heck, man, why don't we get you on staff here and help the kids? And, it was just great. We really clicked and get along. It's, I think it's something you don't want to overuse somebody like him. You want him to be able to share his knowledge and benefit our kids, and not say, I want you to do everything. Obviously he's incredibly capable, but the knowledge that, him and I can bounce off each other. I find it funny. We're constantly on the same page in the corner saying things. So we feel, or at least I feel like I'm doing something right when I can have somebody like Rob next to me who's feeling the same way about something too. So.
Yeah, heck yeah, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Coach, I guess probably the most important question we're going to ask you all evening, and then I'll kick it over to Jimmy. He can go through the through line again with you. But we know you're a South Jersey guy, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this. We fancy ourselves as Central Jersey guys, but if we had to, I know a lot of people only say North Jersey, South Jersey. If we had to pledge allegiance to one of those regions, it would definitely be South Jersey. So the question is, Coach, is it pork roll or Taylor ham?
Pork roll all day. I mean, I don't know why. When I lived in Missouri, there was a guy that he was from Point Pleasant, and he owned a restaurant, and he would bring in, he'd have pork roll on the menu, and it wasn't like listed very much, but he always had it there. And he's like, "You want some Taylor ham?" I said, "I'll only buy it if you call it pork roll." So it was, a fun little dig with him all the time. But yeah, it's definitely pork roll.
Heck yeah.
Well, that is interesting because we are from Point Pleasant and we call it pork roll. So that guy's giving us a bad name out there in the world.
Yeah. So,
That's why he's in Missouri.
Right? Yeah. Coach, did you ever wrestle in South Jersey states? That's a topic that comes up here all the time when we have some of the South Jersey guys on.
Yeah, as a little kid, yeah. Yeah,
There you-
definitely. I had I think I won that a couple times when I was a little kid. My uncle was really good at that. He won South Jersey and New Jersey State tournament like 7 times as a youth wrestler.
Dang.
He did it crazy. But yeah, it was always great. I mean, back when we had the Gloucester County League, the Grapevine League, all that stuff, we kind of had that just, beating the tar out of each other. It's, a lot of guys like Billy Gibbs is one of my middle school coaches who was a state champ at Clearview, a JUCO champ as well. We talk about, we didn't have to go far to find, the toughest guy. You just went to the next town over and you had somebody there to bang with that, pushed you to the brink. For me, having guys like Manchio and, Billy around and all that stuff, we didn't have to go far. We'd be sneaking into Gloucester County's room while we were in high school and, wrestling with the college guys as much as we could to try to get prepared for what was to come, chasing the ultimate goals. And those guys achieved it and I didn't in New Jersey, not winning that state title. But, that was something we always look forward to, is those South Jersey states and, just really region 7, 8s, just beating each other up. You saw a lot of future, state placement matches and region finals that happened from those little tournaments. So.
Yeah, we both had our own experiences. Rich did a little bit better at South Jersey States than I did. I didn't have such a good experience, but it gave me motivation for when I got older. Couple other through lines I told you just when I reached out, but Coach Costanzo, we had you came up when we saw that he was the head coach at Dana College. And then Nick Becker, he came on the podcast and he was like, "You guys know you're from Jersey, Jimmy Rollins?" It's like we were just talking about him. And then I believe you and I coached an athlete, John McArdle, was at
Yes.
Lindenwood when you were there. I was his coach his first year at Middlesex. I was an assistant there with Mike Bell.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Johnny McCardle was, he was wild, man. He'd throw the kitchen sink at you every time he wrestled. And I ended up hiring an assistant at Lindenwood that we went down to Ouachita Baptist, and the guy was the #1 ranked guy in the country, and we wrestled like dog crap for the first 5 weights, and they were putting it on us pretty good, and started battling back, and we're like, man, I don't know if Johnny can do this one. It's the top guy in the country, returning, I believe, finalist. Johnny ended up teching him in the second period, and then we ended up winning the duel, I think by 1 or 2. So, but yeah, Coach Costanzo, that guy was life-changing for me. He meant the world. Coming out of New Jersey, moving to Nebraska, I didn't know what to do. I had no idea. He's talking to me about harvest season, picking me up from the airport. I'm like, I don't care. I'm so close to Philly and West Effort. Growing up, I was like, dude, I barely see fields half the time, But it was an approach to where he cared a lot about me more as a person than just my accolades and what I was doing. It really spent a lot of time. I used to have to go to his office every day and just sit there, and I'd watch. He had old VHS tapes of like greatest matches, and I would just sit in there and watch those and do my homework or get stuff done. But he'd have me over to dinner at the house. I was always getting to know his family. I mean, I'd still talk to them constantly. He was different, and it was, if you didn't do something right, you felt like you disappointed him. And it wasn't like, it was just like you let him down. You always wanted to succeed for him. And Steve never had a national champ before I got there. So I really wanted to be his first one. And I tell him all the time, after he's done coaching, I'm going to be a trivia question one day of who was his first national champion. But yeah, man, I can't say enough great things about Steve Costanzo and the job he still continues to do at St. Cloud State. And Nick Becker's just fun, man. That guy's he's a blast. I love Nick.
Did you ever get to wrestle against Coach Costanzo as a coach?
Yes, it was weird. It was the first time coaching across from him. I wasn't used to it. He had a real stud 25-pounder in Brett Velasquez too, and I had a good one who was a 3-time All-American and NCAA champion. Ended up being the D2 Wrestler of the Year. So at first he was getting our guy, and at the end we placed above him. So it was constantly just. My first year was really hard. I wanted to redshirt guys as a head coach and kind of change some of the ways we were doing things. And I qualified one guy for the NCAA tournament, didn't score a point, so we're dead last. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, everything I decided to do is wrong. I'm horrible at this. I think a good coach always second guesses everything. And coach was really great about you're doing it the right way. I think we had like 4 or 5 guys that were one match away from qualifying that year. And then the next year we moved to I think it was 22nd, and then it was 12th, then 7th, then 6th, then 3rd, so we were constantly improving, and him just kind of reassuring me that you're doing the right things, and Rome wasn't built in a day line kind of worked really well. So he's always been there to help me out.
Coach, take a step back. How did wrestling at Gloucester, like Jimmy mentioned before we got on, coming from the East Coast, where we're from, I don't know how it is maybe down in your neck of the woods, but with Ocean County College and Brookdale, the community college experience is, amongst peers is maybe a little bit frowned upon, or not frowned upon, maybe looked down upon. And then also coming from the East Coast, where there's not really many NAI, if any NAI schools in the Northeast. How did Coach find you? And you mentioned, Nebraska harvest season, that sort of stuff. Was it a bit of culture shock coming from South Jersey?
Yeah, I mean, Gloucester County was great. We had Mike Lamb there, and it was a lot of your high school friends, from all the towns were there. So I didn't go to class much, and I realized nobody was going to hold me accountable. I had to do it myself, and I was making 125 my freshman year, so it pretty much was a 7-hour a day weight cut for me. And so I would run to school and run home after practice, and it was think it was like 7.5 miles to get there or something, and then 7.5 miles home. So it was finally Coach Lamb's like, you're not going to do this very long. Like, you might be undefeated, and that's great, but you're going to be ineligible. And so it was that kind of rude awakening, but it was nice because he also sold me on, my girlfriend at the time was still here, and I was looking at Iowa Central and Neosho to go to, because I had to go JUCO. And they were the top 2 programs at the time in the Midwest. And he's like, you don't want to leave your girlfriend, you got to stay home. So, and we had a great team. We had 3 national champions. We were team national champions as well. But, it was a great setup for me. And Mike Lamb was a phenomenal coach. And then, Costanzo had an assistant at the time named Richard Fergola. And he never stopped calling my house. It was every day, twice a day for like 3 months. And finally, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to talk to the guy. Wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was looking at a lot of different schools. And when I got on the phone with him and then Coach Costanzo, the first thing they talked about was a degree. And every other coach I talked with was, you're going to win a national championship here. And I said, well, my mindset is I'm going to win wherever I go. Like, I want to win that. And it's great to hear that they believe that you're going to be a national champion, but it was the first coaches that really talked to me about graduating. And I hadn't heard that much in my life. It was always just, Jimmy, you're going to win. You're going to go to this level. You're going to do that. High school, it was, you're going to be a state champion, concentrate on that. And then, a lot of college, Lamb tried to push me. I'm not saying that he didn't, but it was the 4-year schools were really talking about just winning. And they emphasized the degree, and they held me accountable on it. It was, making sure I was in class all the time there. It's different when your coach is full-time on campus too. Mike had his other obligations, and, so he wasn't there every day to make sure I was in class or doing all of my work that was needed. So that was a big change for me. I think the culture at Dana College with what Steve had built was something that really was awesome for me. It was teammates that also held you accountable. They knew that what I could do on the mat and what I could bring to the team, but hey, no screwing off, no getting in trouble, make sure you're getting your grades in order. What help do you need? I think having a great group of people around a knucklehead helps the knucklehead kind of shape up a bit. And we had all these guys from all over the country. I mean, we had a roster of 70. So it was this gigantic team of all these different minds and approaches, but it was great. Like, it really was something. He put me in a house with guys from Nebraska and Washington and all over, definitely different people than I was used to. And they became very good friends. And they helped me on my path a lot, just to, think the right way and approach my life the right way.
Did you know you wanted to get into coaching before you met all those folks?
Yeah, I mean, the plan was always to come back to Jersey, be a high school coach, and it's funny that I'm now doing that, but it's like, that was my plan as a teenager. And I don't know if I would have pushed as hard in college if I would have won a state title. That was my goal forever. I didn't think much about wrestling in college. Everything was focused on being a state champion. So in a lot of ways, I'm grateful that I lost that semifinal as a senior, because it did propel me to do a lot of different things. I still wish I could have it back, but it did. It changed my path and trajectory. And then as soon as I finished up school, I got asked to be on staff. I still had I think a year of my undergrad to do, and they had this like student assistant thing where I could keep my degree, and they paid me a few bucks, and I'm like, well, yeah. And then it was, why don't you stay on in this role and then that role? And they just kept materializing, and I just kept taking advantage of the opportunities that were there, and just really enjoyed it.
Coach, a lot of what you're saying is resonating with me. I know Rich sees me smirking over there. You're a better man than me, because I am not grateful I lost my semifinal. I'm still trying to get there, but because I didn't win that state title, that is why I wrestled in college and chased some things and went after it. So I appreciate you sharing that with us. And when you went to Lindenwood, they were an NAIA powerhouse.
Yeah.
They were like, I think they won like 6 or 7. Like no one could touch them. They were pretty good at
Yeah.
that
The only
time.
team to beat them during their run was us, actually. So, and we had to break the national scoring record to beat them while I was at Dana. So they were Joe Parisi and then Chad Smith after that. I mean, they were monstrous program.
Yeah. So obviously there winning is going to be a big thing, right? But you said your coaches really spoke to you because they could manage knucklehead and they talked about graduating. So how did you balance that? Hey, we got to get kids in here and we got to get them to graduate and we got to make them better people. But hey, we also have to win.
Yeah, it was. So when I first got there, they were going from transition from the NAIA to D2. So we had a 2-year sit. So talk about hard to recruit. That is the time where we're chasing, club nationals. And, so it was a good fix to try to NCAA standards are a bit different than NAI in terms of academic eligibilities and things like that too. Your clocks and everything else. So it was an adaptation to figure out what we were doing. We were able to kind of gear up for those first 2 years to get ready for our first year out of the gate. And I think we took 7th when I was the head assistant at the time, and we took 7th in the NCAA that year. So we had some real good success. And we had guys like Johnny and those guys, come in, and we were winning a conference title, beating Nebraska Kearney for that one, which is another powerhouse program. It was a gauntlet in Division II. I mean, NEI had like your core group of powers that were pretty steady at the time. Grandview was just kind of on the come up, which is now they're just a monster powerhouse over there. But when we transitioned in, there was a ton of us D2 programs, Notre Dame College, McKendree. I believe there was 2 others outside of us that all transitioned at the exact same time from NAI to D2. So we were kind of battling for recruits as we all were trying to get the lineup set up. NAI runs on a scholarship, kind of an average system too at the time, and now we're being told a specific allotment. So it was a different gauge on how to do things, and it was fun. But yeah, there was pressure. I mean, I enjoyed that part of it too, where you got to win. Like there's a culture of success here. Like I talk to the kids all the time about it while I was there, and I say it a lot to my kids now. Is all the alumni, before you and after you, there has to be the example set by you in terms of how we navigate this as athletes, as students. You want your name on the wall, then you got to earn it. And I think that was something to be able to look up and see the Jake Diefenbachs, and all those of the world that were multiple time champions, Andrew Bradbury's, all that there was something that, people could see that they wanted to chase.
And now that you're coaching at high school and obviously you got kids going to the next level, how do you approach that with them? Obviously, New Jersey, Rutgers, Rider, Division I is king, and there's some good Division III schools. But like Rich said, junior college, NAIA, even D2, there's only one Division II school in New Jersey now. So how do you kind of talk to kids of, hey, there's plenty of options out there, and there might be an option out there that you're not even looking at yet?
Yeah, it's something I talk to them about a lot. I just had a conversation with my heavyweight today about where we see him and what he can do, and we talked about the D2 D3 route and a junior college option as well. He's a younger kid. He's only 17 still, and doesn't turn 18 till June. So it's there's still some maturing to do, and physical growth as well probable. So I'm very big on. I mean, I get T-shirts from all these schools that are golf outing, and most of them aren't Division I schools. I'll have like 30 different colleges, baskets set up, and I'll be able to talk about those programs, who their coaches are, what that program has for history, things like that, because I want to educate them on everything. And I try to tell them all, like, your path is your path. It doesn't have to be, wrestling in the Big Ten finals. It doesn't have to. If that's what you want to choose, that's fine. But there's got to be your path, not somebody else's path dictated for you.
And you mentioned that you have another former college coach on your staff, and that's not something a lot of high school kids have available to them as two former head college coaches. Do you guys kind of have a cheat list of, hey, when you're looking at colleges, ask them this question, look for this? Do you have some stuff like that you kind of give advice on?
Yeah. Again, we were talking today with the heavyweight, and it's, go in there. I always say that the first component's got to be a financial decision. This is a big commitment. You have to understand what you're going to garner academically first. We're fortunate that we're like top academic school in Gloucester County. So our kids are leaving Clearview very prepared. And the numbers that they're receiving on that side of things are very lofty. Again, Ty's a great example coming through our program, great success, and able to go to Princeton, and chase his goals. So I talk to a lot of kids about a financial component. It's not that we need to know the athletic offer right away, but is this place affordable? What's your allotment? Do you have, funds put away for college? If so, what does that look like? We need to understand out of state at Virginia Tech is X amount of dollars. Do you have 60 grand a year to go there? And I'm just throwing that number out there. I know it's a pretty expensive out of state, but, talk to them about, hey, well, if you're going to work on in-state tuitions, this is how long that takes. So, just trying to talk to them about, don't go into a coach and say, what's your offer? You get cut off real quickly from a college coach with that. But go in and educate yourself on the basis of, coach, would you understand how much I may receive academically? Is there any idea of a ballpark athletic allotment that you would be giving? Then you can see if that works within your funds. If it's a $75,000 school and you're getting $5,000 and you don't have that kind of money, there's no reason to chase debt just because that school is one that I like, or I watch them on TV. Go win a D2 title. And then, if you want to transfer, I'm not all into the transfer portal. It's crazy. But I utilize the heck out of it as a coach. But there's always an option in today's day and age. You're not stuck at a school per se, but you can't go in and take on copious amounts of debt and then pay for it until you're 70. So that's kind of the ways I talk about it. But a lot of it, we go over cheat sheet questions.
I think that's important too for the kids to know, because that speaks. I think it speaks volumes to the college coaches to have a kid that comes in with questions to ask, and the kids realizing that they're in a way interviewing the coach, or just as much as the coach is trying to get a feel for them. Is this the right recruit you want to get a feel for? Is this my guy? Is this the right coach for me? And Jimmy and I talk about it all the time, about how the number one question is really the financial, maybe not what I'm getting in terms of a financial package, but how much right out of the gate am I paying out of pocket? And it seems like the NAIA schools have some pretty good price tags that go along with them, and it seems like we've talked with a bunch of the different coaches in the athletic department at the University of Cumberland's, and it just seems like there's some NAIA schools out there that are doing the right things and have some pretty top-notch facilities too.
Yeah, it's shocking. Again, I never heard of the NAIA when I lived in Jersey. I didn't know what it was, had no idea about it. And I don't think there was many kids from New Jersey. Sorry, my dog and kids are running around above me. Mm-hmm. But, it was small faith-based schools that were the majority of them where, we had a campus of 550 kids. And I'm like, I was like less than half the size of the high school I went to. But we had 70 on the wrestling team. Out of the 550, I think there was 532 that were student athletes. So we didn't have a general student population. We were all doing the same thing. There was no classes from 2 to I think 6 o'clock because everybody had practice. So it was kind of cool to have a setup like that. But there was small gyms, but some nice facilities. Like our wrestling room it was so hot. It was above the boiler room, and Steve would crank that thing. It was great. It was tiny, but they took out an extra classroom to make room for us and spread it out. But you go to some of these schools, like Grandview's wrestling facility, it's phenomenal. Now, most of these schools are not going to be in a place like Des Moines. You're looking at smaller towns that, these schools are a lifeblood of that community as well. So when I went out to Nebraska, we were only 20 miles from Omaha, but the the idea that everybody knew I was new because nobody had seen me before. So walking through town, it was, hey, how you doing? Do you need a job? And coming from Jersey, I'm thinking everybody's talking to me. He's got like a problem or something. So I'm like ready to fight everybody. And I'm like, wow, what's this guy saying? You know, and then you meet the whole community fast, but it's just a lot of these small towns are very genuine. You know, they see somebody new. How can I help? I mean, I think I did every odd end job that was my first job was chopping weeds with a machete in a cornfield. You know, like then I got something better quick. But you know, it was stuff like that, and I think that's one of the great things about the NAIA. Like there's all across the country. You know, there's not much here on the Northeast in terms of wrestling community wise, but you know, you go through Cumberland's and you get some of these beautiful areas. I like to say most of us growing up here don't ever leave the tri-state area. You know, we kind of just sit here and, you know, somebody says, you know, I had this conversation with one of my kids the other day. He wants to be an electrician. And I said, well, you know, Montana State University Northern, NAIA school. I said, you know, go out there. He's like, what's in Montana? I'm like, Montana's actually beautiful, man. Like you just think there's nothing because you've never been. It's like, but there's a lot more outside of this area. And, you know, Southern Oregon and all these different programs all across the country, you know, NAIA was great, man. It was phenomenal competition. You know, it was, I mean, guy I wrestled in the finals. It's funny. I saw him last year here at the theater in town and he's from Illinois. So it was really funny that we run into each other, but, you know, he placed in the US Open, I think 4 or 5 times after we were done college, you know, and, you got to wrestle those type of caliber guys on a consistent basis. And it was great.
You know, you mentioned another thing too that I think is important that I know Jim, I joke about it all the time is we just weren't aware of all the different major, you know, it was just like you go to college to get a degree, but you know, if you like working with your hands, there's just, you know, there's schools that have, you know, construction degrees and there's,
Yep.
you know, a lot of NAIA and JUCO schools that have welding programs and different things. And so I think sometimes kids just don't even think college is an option because, oh, I want to work with my hands or I want to do something along those lines. And they don't even know that those sorts of things exist. And it's like, well, if you really enjoy wrestling, love the sport, we can find you a way that one, you can continue to do that, but two, you know, we can get you into the electrical field or we can get you into construction and you can come out of it not only with the degree, but with the hands-on experience.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe an All-American certificate, maybe a national championship, maybe some other opportunities that can come along from it as well.
Yeah. I always said to coaches, you know, when you're recruiting, you never know what the kid wants to do till you call him. Worst thing you hear is no. And that's why you got to hit the phones and talk to the parents, the coaches. I mean, tirelessly recruiting. That was my MO was I loved wrestling. I loved running the room, but I'm going to out hustle everybody else on the recruiting trail. I might not be able to beat them in terms of money, but I'm going to beat them in learning the kid, the family, and everything else. And I started a JUCO in Iowa at one point, and we got a 3-timer out of California, dream team member, all this, because he wanted to be a welder. And we had a welding degree, and we had to help him get his green card, all this stuff. It was a pain, but kid could wrestle. And, you know, he was the same year as Jake Varner coming out, and kid started wrestling as a freshman in high school and then won 3 California state titles. You know, he ended up beating Patrick Hunter in the regional final. It was a Jersey stud. And me and the kid I loved working out. We called him Speedy. Urban Moreno was his name, but we called him Brian. And he was a tough little dude. But yeah, it was welding. We had a kid that was construction major. You know, he wanted construction management. Was what he ended up going through. And you never know. You know, that's why you hit the trail and you talk to as many coaches and you let them know what is available. And I mean, I used to send vacation Okoboji guides to kids in New Jersey just because I'm like, dude, we got this beautiful lake. Now, they didn't realize it would be frozen over the whole time that they were there during the winter. But, you know, you got to sell kids from Brick and all these places to get them out there on what's capable and what's available.
Do you miss recruiting, or is that a part of, no, I'm good, I get to eat dinner with my family now?
I mean, I got 3 kids now, and the amount of time I was away. I think part of that was what related to some of my health issues was just I I was on the road 24/7. We didn't have crazy recruiting budgets, so it was jump in a car and drive to the next town and staying in cheap motels to save money and everything else, and talking to kids all hours of the day and night, and then dealing with your team and everything else. I mean, high school, these kids got, families to go home to and parents to deal with some of those issues. I'm always going to be there for them if they need it. But, when these kids are from California or Jersey and you're in the middle of the country, you got to handle everything. You got to be a friend, a brother, a parent when needed. And, it started taking a big toll on me and, from a health standpoint. And then I had my third kid and it was like, man, I don't know if I can do this anymore. It was one of those I had to have a moment to say, if it ends today and I can't physically do this anymore, am I comfortable with how my career was? Am I satisfied with what I did as an athlete and a coach? And, at the time I was, this family's more important, and got my health squared away. And after a couple of years, it was like, I think I finally want to do this coaching thing again. And an opportunity popped up at Clearview that I kind of saw as a diamond that can really grow. And that's what we're trying to do.
Well, I'm glad to hear that your health has cleared up and you're still able to coach wrestling and you were able to say, all right, I'm ready to get back into it. That said, getting back into it, what skills or tools that you had as a college coach do you feel helps you a lot as a high school coach?
Managing the minds. I think today, more so than anything, is a culture of entitlement at times. And I don't say that to be negative. I just think kids are given a lot more. It's not as old school as it used to be. And I started seeing that throughout my time as a coach. When I first started coaching, it was run them all into the ground, build them back up, run them into the ground again. Toughest all can rise to the top. But then you start finding that, coaching talent is something that has to be developed. That's a hard thing for somebody to do. Coaches kind of tend to lean towards talent and give them what they want. Are we really making the best of that talent? I don't think you are. You got to challenge talent. You got to be able to push talent, and you got to cultivate talent as younger kids. So one thing I always tried to do, and from day one that I started trying to do at Clearview, is you got to build a culture. I think that's extremely important to get a buy-in. When you're getting a buy-in from everybody around, you understand your alumni, everything. I got the job at Clearview. I think my first call was to Billy Gibbs. My second one was to Ty Whalen. And, you got to tie into those alumni first. What guys, I just want to let you know, I just took this over. You guys are welcome anytime you want. And it's been bringing back guys like Danny Garwood now, who wrestled at Virginia Tech, was a state place winner for Clearview. We got him helping with our heavyweights and, getting with Johnny Van Brill. I had Mikey Van Brill on staff last year before he moved to Idaho. I think it's culture. You got to have, starts with the youth when you're at the high school level. And, so I spend a lot of time down there with those kids and letting them know that I'm watching and learning the names and meeting the families and just helping every which way I can, redesigning and developing our middle school program and all this. As a head coach in college, you're constantly designing and re-cultivating everything, right? And now this is just a lot more people to do it with and trying to develop a system and getting people to buy into that system, which is important.
Coach, are you in the school too, or do you work outside of you are?
Yeah, I am in the school. Physical education teacher. Finally using that degree for what it was supposed to be.
Right on, me too.
Yeah.
But I guess you're still doing a little bit of recruiting, right? You're getting
With whatever the rules will allow. My dad really likes the recruiting because he can do whatever he wants on Jersey rules, and they have some unique rules on it. So
I mean, from within inside the school, maybe finding that offensive lineman that might be able to help, or
when I got here, I think we had 9 kids on the middle school team, and this year we started with 46.
Nice.
So we do, I teach at the middle school. So the day 3, we do heights and weights. So I took all the middle school teachers, um, heights and weights, and I just went through and started checking off names that we needed for weights and went and talked to all those kids. So that was kind of the way, and growing our women's side of things. That's been a big thing for us too. We had our first girl last year. We doubled it this year. We got to 2. It looks like we're already going to be at 7 or 8 that have committed for next year. But it's been trying to promote our girls in the right way. Like I set something up later on in the year where we let our girls, a lot of schools wrestle them during the JV side of things. And so the girls don't get to do an intro unless they're on a full squad and things like that. So we started tying it in to our varsity side of things and letting them do introductions and walk out and do that kind of stuff. I think that's important. Our one girl did it this year, and she looks at me and she goes, "Coach, my hands are sweating. I don't know what to do. I'm used to wrestling before these guys." And but I think that's big in the buy-in. It's I think the one thing that schools got to learn, I think money's tight everywhere. So I think the big thing is if we can establish at least a coach, whether it's an assistant role or whatever, to say this is a fully designated women's coach. Schools that have the numbers that are 2 or 3 can see gigantic jumps in those numbers, because then it's a full commitment saying, hey, like they can train with the guys, the wrestling practice can be all one, but we can get more of a commitment to adding a coach. It takes a lot off of, like for me, getting up every Saturday and Sunday at 5 a.m. to go to multiple tournaments. It's taxing. It's not the time that I told my wife we would be able to have more together. I love coaching our girls, but if I could just have somebody go to weigh-ins with them and I could be there a couple hours later, that would be great. But yeah, I think we got to get athletic directors, superintendents, administrations understanding what this skyrocket is doing in women's wrestling. And Jersey's been way behind. We just started really pushing this a few years ago, and in the Midwest and everything else, this has been going on for years and years. So,
do you think Jimmy and I were talking about the presentation of the state tournament with the inclusion of the ladies? Do you think that the way they're doing it is ideal, or do you think they could be done a little bit better?
I think the qualifying system's unique. When you're pulling full 32 brackets for stuff, like for example, one of my girls originally had a pigtail in a 32-man bracket, and with match limitations, she's a first-year wrestler, but you have to look at it in a full, perspective. If she won all her matches and made the regional final, she wouldn't have been able to wrestle the regional final because of match limits. How are we putting that best foot forward if we're not understanding this? And I think for the state, decisions are made for wrestling in April. So it's hard to distinguish what the numbers are going to be like, but there's got to be an anticipation now on, these numbers are popping off big time. South Jersey, I think, had 4 state champions this year that were females. I think we got to, figure out how to maybe up the qualifiers a little bit, maybe distinguish a district. 2 weeks off from their qualifier to the state tournament's a long time for these kids too. These kids are used to competing multiple times a week. Having 2 weeks off is a big break for them. So I don't know if we're seeing the best of them every time with that type of format. I think it's great for them to be in Boardwalk Hall and get the same commitment from the state and everybody and the fans like that. But as this grows, I mean, that's going to be some really, really long days, especially when you look at coaches that are having to pull double duty. How do you get these guys out of the arena to go relax and get their mind off of it and get them best prepared for their next round when you got to stay and coach the girls too? I mean, there's got to be some give and take a little bit with it. So I don't know if there's a clear system on what we do with that, but it's growing, and it's growing big time. I mean, I don't want to say separate them right now, but I mean, at a point, how many championships are done with both the guys and girls there? I mean, I think there is a format where the girls are going, the weekend before or something. Who knows? I haven't dove into it enough, but I really do think we got to rethink the qualifying system for them. And they're only seeding to 8 in these brackets, so got to at least seed to 16. I had a young lady who was like 18 wins on the year, ends up drawing into the 1 seed right away. So she loses and was losing 1-0 late in the match, gave up a fall. But I mean, she's better than drawing her right away. And, but it's a random draw after the first 8, and you got 32 kids in a bracket. So,
Wow.
it's a different system for sure. I think everybody's just starting to get their feet wet in it. Like I said, we're just a little behind in New Jersey in terms of establishing this.
How's the attendance when the girls wrestle? Is everyone going to get pizza, or people staying to watch? They have a lot of family members down there.
I think it was pretty good. To be honest, I had to run out with the guys this year, so I didn't see, but you saw obviously a number of people that are going to go get something to eat during those times too. If they don't have somebody committed, I don't think it was trying to be disrespectful to the female wrestlers or anything. I think it was just, I'm going to be here for 12 hours today. I got to find a point to not buy a $9 hot dog sitting in Boardwalk Hall. So not that you can find too much cheaper in AC, but I think that was some of those things like, hey, I got to get my kid out of the arena, relax, get him something to eat, get him ready for his next round too. So it's a little bit different, but it seems like the numbers are pretty strong.
So we are fresh off of the state tournament. Rich and I were following along all weekend. How was the state tournament for you, and how was the season for Clearview?
State tournament for me, the kids were asking me, like, Coach, when you wrestled here, I was like, it wasn't at Boardwalk Hall when I was in school. This was the 2 years it was down, and I had to go all the way up to Continental Airlines when I placed in it. So it was good. I haven't, it's a well-round event. It's tight. Those mats are tight on that floor, but there's great wrestling everywhere. It's historic. It's got it's got everything you want in a state tournament. It really does. It's a packed house. For us, it was great to qualify 3 guys. We haven't done that in a long time as a school. So it was really, really good in that regard. I think we had a number of injuries that we're dealing with, just like everybody else, but our 32-pounder wrestled the whole season on a blown ACL. And, to have him commit to try to reach a goal of getting to that state tournament that he'd never achieved before and do that on one wheel, I thought was, a great accomplishment in itself. We had a young man that was ranked all season who, was winning his second match and had his arm trapped, and ref didn't make the call and landed on his head and went out. And obviously the doctors are in control at that point. Our heavyweight, who's about 228, but he had sprained his ankle pretty bad at the regional, tried gutting through it, won a match at the state tournament, and just couldn't drive off his foot. And as a smaller heavyweight, he's strong as an ox, but picking up those big guys, you kind of need an ankle to do it. So I was really proud of those guys, but we were a little tuned up going in, and just couldn't get it done. I think our guys were prepared. We were ready as we could get. I mean, the kid who got slammed literally wrestled regionals with pneumonia, to even qualify having pneumonia. So it was just we kind of got thrown a lot of curveballs there at the end of the season. But overall, I mean, we had to forfeit some weights throughout this year just because some injuries and kids not dedicating themselves. We're not going to put up with kids not being committed the right way when everybody else is going to. So we'll move forward without them. Again, I think that's a lot of building a culture the right way. And, but, we qualified for the playoffs again. We beat some teams that we haven't beaten before. And we really went at it with some schools that were, we could have won some more matches should we had, that one guy, 2 guys that were not forfeiting those weights, but it was getting people back and just, we banged with a lot of people. We picked up Rumson, Fairhaven, and schools like that, which a lot of schools don't pick up. So, but we have an incredible conference to wrestle. So that schedule is great there. But we always add in Paulsboro's and Rumson's, Northern Burlington's this year and stuff to chase Hamilton. So we try to wrestle as many of the good schools as we get our hands on. I think it's more about, if you're chasing state championships, you got to develop your talent, and you got to get your talent the matches that they can. Your kids that aren't as talented yet and are growing, and they got to face the challenges. They got to understand where they need to grow. I don't want to schedule teams that we're just going to beat up on. I tell all our kids, I don't care what my win-loss record is as a coach. It's about preparing you guys. I have no I'm not young enough or have no inclinations to go try and chase a Paul Marina or anything like that. That's not what I'm in it for. I'm in it for trying to develop these student athletes and get them prepared for life, the next level, should they choose to do it. But, realistically, like, you got to take challenges head on, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
Coach, what group are y'all?
Group 4.
Oh, you're a group 4 school. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting, talk about getting rid of some dead weight, creating that culture. And I took over a program down here in South Carolina, and it was all like, oh, we want a new coach. We want a new coach. We want to do things the right way. We want to do the right thing way. And then you come in, you start doing the things the right way. And they're like, whoa, this is a little bit
Why'd
too
you
much.
let go and so? Yeah. You can't have it one way. But that's the thing. And, we're really fortunate. Our middle school program is really strong right now, and they're really buying into it. I mean, they beat Phillipsburg and Cranford and North Hunterton this year. We're sending them up South Plainfield and Wildwood Duels, just as our town wrestling in club divisions and stuff like that, to get those guys prepared. And, I think it's going to help us in the long run as these guys start to come in, and wrestling's more of that lifestyle for them.
Might as well talk about the elephant in the room. You mentioned you were when you wrestled in New Jersey State, you were up in Continental, and I was about a year or two coming off of Princeton, Jowin Gym.
Mm-hmm.
But Jimmy and I are both Region 6 guys, traditional Region 6 guys. We had Coach Nucci come on and break down the realignment and all that stuff. But it seems this year, maybe more than other years, it's been some people talking about it, and maybe some people not as happy with it. What are your thoughts on the alignment? Do you think we would be better off going back to the way it was, where the 7 and 8 were 7 and 8, Region 6 was Region 6, and all that?
Yeah. I think a district's a district, a region's a region. If you're doing it this way, you change the names because they don't make sense.
Right.
I trying to move this team out of there and everything else, and they want, we don't want to bunch up a bunch of individuals. And I said this to I believe it was a state chair. My senior season, just in District 29, we finished 3rd, 5th, and 6th in the state at my weight class. I had to be ready at districts, not walk through districts and have a tough region and then move on to state. No, you had to be strapped up. And I believe the response I got was, well, what about that 4th place guy? I said, well, the 4th place guy went up to 130 because he didn't want to mess around with that. Or, he went down to 119, because that was the thing. You knew where you were going. There was, to be tough, you had to beat Paulsboro in our district. You had to get through these towns. Kingsway was in there. It was, the fans packed it on Friday night. I missed Friday night. I missed the break between the semis and the finals, getting up the next morning, weighing in twice on a Friday night, getting up the next morning, wrestling your semi. I'm telling our kids, I remember so much gambling going on between coaches about my guy's going to beat yours and throwing money down. The crap that people talked, it was fun. And there's legendary matches. When you talk about District 29 this, and I'm a District 29 guy, Region 8 guy, and I can go through matches all day in my head. Watching Mikey Zeckman take 3rd in the district, 3rd in the region, then make the state final. Because of the gauntlets he had to go through. I hate this format. I really do. I being back at my old JUCO, which was where my JUCO or where my district was, is 29, and it being called 32 this year was weird. It was just weird. I think going back to the systems, I think it helps schools too. I mean, you get these kids that start jumping around and transferring because they're in this district and so in that district, so they got to move or transfer somewhere else. It doesn't give the pride in your community as much as it used to. There's something about putting that hometown across your chest and representing it. I love doing that, and so many of my friends the same way. It wasn't anything I was our only state place winner when I was in high school, but we were Group 3 state champions when I was a junior. We were able to win a team title and do some special things, and I could chase my goals individually. I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't like this realignment stuff, especially changing districts every year now. I like to have my schedule done by the end of this month for next season, but I can't because I don't know who's in my district. I think and it's hard because now it's like I got to figure out how to schedule these guys in because they're in this conference, that one's in that conference, where majority of you would be from the same conference in each district, and you grew up with these guys. There's a respect factor for the towns. The rivalry again, West Everett and Paulsboro hated each other. I got booed I don't know how many times sitting in a gym, and but I also took the booing as a respect. It wasn't malicious. It was they knew I was good, and I don't like him because he's from West Everett and he's good. All right, like I can respect that. Like I think that's where some of these problems happen, and you get all these districts, and I don't know. Like there was a level of respect, I think, for everybody that was involved for it. You don't see it because you don't know each other. I'm totally against it, man. I hate this whole stuff. Like I think there's pride when you're like you guys talking. The first thing I hear is we're Region 6 guys. It's like, yeah, like you represent your area. This is where I come from. And it's hard to say that now. It really is. How do you distinguish, South Jersey members? Like one year this team's in South Jersey, next year they're not. It's hard. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. When you get down to Atlantic City, where now you're rooting for everyone in your region.
Yeah.
You might have been rivalries or conference rivalries or whatever it was, or even within the district, but you made it through the gauntlet, as you said. Now we're all down in Atlantic City, so now we're fist bumping each other. We're warming up together. We're all pulling for each other because, like you said, we want to get those three guys from that district or from that region on the medal stand and have pride in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Coach, we agree with you ad nauseum. We have these conversations. I have a buddy who coached at junior college with me, and we have these conversations. And to your point is, I always felt because everyone was like, "Oh, we have to distribute the power." I mean, my 4 years in high school, Region 8 was really tough my freshman and sophomore year, and then it kind of Region 3, Region 6 was on the come up as I was leaving high school. Region 1 was tough, Phillipsburg and Kittatinny. I always felt like it took care of itself. And I know there's an argument that region or the short conference had 6 or 5 kids this year place at 106. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought about it was, well, maybe get rid of the 4th place in the region and start having wild cards. So if you have those saturated weight classes where you have those kids, make their matches during the season count where there's like a PowerPoint system. And if you get 4th or 5th in your region, well, based on the kids you beat during the year that are going states from other regions, maybe that gets you through instead of having that 4th place, because sometimes the 4th place kid isn't placing, or I was talking to Rich, there are some kids from around our area that I saw were 4-time state qualifiers and never placed in states. When we were coming up, if you went to states 4 times, you were placing at least twice. Like
the brackets were smaller, so it was a little bit different. Super regions were a thing when I was still in school. So, I mean, I had to wrestle Clinton Hicks in my junior year, and I think he beat me 4-3. And then, I'm in the losers bracket going to Continental Airlines Arena. So, I think that was a system where you knocked each other off, which stunk because, I mean, Clinton beat the guy in the state finals 9-0, and I wrestled like a baby because I couldn't win. So I was sulking most of the tournament, not putting forth my best efforts all the time. And, I like that that's a way. I like the 32-man bracket. I mean, I think it's good to have a full bracket. I think our whole seating criteria from districts on have to change. Like this prestige point thing, like it doesn't make sense to me. I had a kid last year who we didn't match up with a kid, but he lost to 5 kids that we pinned, and we were behind him in a seed, and I can't argue it because it was all prestige points. It's like, well, we pinned 5 guys that he lost to. How does this make any sense? There's no factoring in of common opponents. There's nothing like that. So, and the argument I got was, well, who wants to sit through a 5-hour seating meeting? And I'm like, nobody. But if it takes 5 hours to get it right, then it takes 5 hours to get it right. You know, it's the benefit for the kids to do it. I don't know if setting up other systems or how to do it, but it's crazy. You know, it's something has to be done. I've heard some people talk about going to the 8 regions and going back to 3 and making a region 9 and putting all those teams together and giving them more qualifiers to get them out. Maybe that's a system. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when Coach Nucci came on, he made it seem pretty good. You know, that was because it was for the benefit of getting more short conference kids in. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, you know, maybe I'm just getting a little old here. I was also someone who participated during the super region
yeah,
era, and you know, my senior year, I was 3rd in the region, and I had to wrestle the guys but the two guys that finished in front of me both finished on the medal stand.
right.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't have any regrets about anything I did, or you know. But if had that been a little bit different, different bracket on the other side of the bracket, who knows? I might have made it onto the medal stand. But
Yeah,
such is life.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hate super regions. It was a part of it. I mean, I remember Larry Smashy taking out Lade Black at the super region, and it's like, man, that match probably doesn't happen at the state tournament. But to catch him on a whatever it was Tuesday, Wednesday night, man, you can make fireworks happen because that region champ's coming in wrestling 1 match, no warm up, waiting for these guys. Like, I think it was a disadvantage to our product, but obviously at the time it was probably the best time for Jersey wrestling that we ever had because you had to be on every day.
Yeah.
So it's different for sure. But yeah, I don't know if a region 9 fixes it, but I mean, I think if you keep districts the same and you keep regions the same, I think you keep some of these kids home too. I really do. I think some kids stay with their town and don't jump to all these prep schools as much because there's a sense of pride in growing together. But you know, if you're at one of these preps, you're going to be probably the number 1 school in that district, so you're going to have an easier road than most. So I think that's the way some of that's looked at. I mean, we had St. Augustine Prep all the way in Gloucester County for a district this year. So I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense, you know, but it is what it is. And again, Vianney having to go all the way to Collingswood for a district, that's just absurd to me. So
Yeah, I think it was. I did some research. It was like 8 other districts that they were either north of them or south of them that they drove by to get
right,
to
just get
Collingswood.
there. Yeah, and it's crazy. And again, that's some of the respect. Whether it was Vianney, West Everett, doesn't mean it to me anyway. But you know, I think there's that respect factor when you grow up in that district and you know the towns and you've wrestled these people and everything else. You know, I think that it's just a different setup. So
You think it's gonna with the rise of the prep schools and stuff that really wasn't a thing back when we were wrestling? You know, there were some non-public kids that snuck in there and maybe had a Paul VI back in the day. But do you
yeah.
think that's gonna bring a return to the youth wrestling within the communities?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, the youth wrestling is pretty strong.
Yeah.
You know, these prep schools, again, not to knock them, but I mean, they're not developing a youth program. They're taking from other youth programs, you know, and putting into theirs. So, you know, when I'm spending time with my kids in these younger groups, like I'll be at the youth state tournament this weekend, helping kids out and doing what we can and showing support. But I mean, I feel like, you know, you got to be there to show these kids like, hey man, I got your back, you know, stick with us type of thing too. I think that's part of the job now, you know. But it's like Camden Catholic was a power when I was in school.
Sure.
You know, I had to wrestle Bobby Ray for 3rd in the state. And, you know, we wrestled since we were little kids and never wrestled in high school. And then my senior year, last match, it's Bobby. And we were 1 and 2 in the state in the seeds and both got upset in the semis. And here we are, taking the humble walk to try to go get third and wrestle each other, but yeah, I mean, I remember when, it was, Dave Miller, Clinton Hicks, Billy Gibbs, Mark Manchio, Mike Booth, all these guys going together. It was 5 weights in a row and 4 were public schools. It was one kid that went private. And they were all South Jersey kids. We're all Region 7 and 8 guys. And that was just the 5 weight classes right in a row. I think 2 years later, was it 03, or 3 years later after that one, I think it was 03, there was 9 state champs from South Jersey. And I think it was 1 public school kid, one private school kid. Then Donnie Fish, all those guys were winning them. Absegami had their power where those kids you didn't have to go private. It was, I think if a lot of these kids in certain areas stay home, you can really build some public powers out of it.
Yeah. Shout out to Dave Miller.
Dave's
former guest.
Yeah, Dave was tough as hell, man. So his dad was tough too. So.
Yeah.
Coach, one last question I have for you before we get into the Final Four. If Rich doesn't have anything, you had mentioned you were talking to your heavyweight about, hey, well, look at this school in Montana, and he said to you, "What's in Montana? Hey, it's a big world." You got to experience this country because of the sport of wrestling. I believe Nebraska, lived in Iowa, Missouri. Rich and I, because chasing our dreams took us out of Point Pleasant, and we got to experience some cool places. How has it been coming back to New Jersey with that skill set of a wrestling coach? You have some accomplishments under your belt going back to New Jersey. How is it being back in New Jersey coaching?
It's fun. It really is. It's all the same people. We're just older. Like that's the funny part to me is I get people all the time walk up to me. Kids are like, "Coach, who was that?" I'm like, "I have no idea. I don't remember who that is." Almost every gym we go to. Hey, Jimmy, I remember you here. Yeah, thanks, guy. It's a lot of my response, and then it's a lot of friends I grew up with and everything else. I'm looking over at Regions and Manchio's sitting with my old man, jabbering about something wrestling wise about probably how he beat somebody in Regions, and I've won 4 of these and doing Mark stuff, but it's a blast. I mean, it's funny now to see people that I grew up with and their kids, that are coming up into high school now. It makes me feel really old, but it's fun. It really is. It's going into these gyms and I'm trying to find the entrances because I'm like, I haven't been here in 25 years. I don't know where anything is, and all that stuff, oh, they used to do this here. So I'm always storytelling with our kids about, matches here and what this was like. And, it was a scary thing walking into Paulsboro's gym for a West Effort Paulsboro match. And that thing would be sold out and rocking. And, it was hot, they're all folk tales about, man, they turn up the heat in the girls' locker room, sweat you out beforehand, do this. And, so I'm kind of sharing some of those old stories that probably aren't true. But, that's the thing. I think when you growing up here and having those districts, those regions and all that stuff together, it led to some really special memories. Not that you can't make your own now, but it's that ever-changing cycle now. It's building that rivalry against the school that, how much does it really mean if they're always changing districts and you guys are in different regions and you're in different classes or groups. That's the stuff that I miss a little bit, but I mean, it's a lot of fun. It's funny to see the guys that I grew up with, and so many of them are, coaching these other programs. We're wrestling Cherokee and I see Mikey Booth and go to Township. I got Eric Ring, all these different towns, and it's all guys I grew up with wrestling, so it's fun to see it on that side of things.
Rich, you got anything else for Coach, or you want to get in the Final Four?
Oh, I know he says he's got 3 kids and a dog upstairs, so I could talk to him all night and reminisce about the good old days and get into some stuff. But let's be respectful of his time and get into.
Oh, my wife can handle the kids. Don't rush me off.
Coach, are you a coffee drinker?
Yes.
How do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
Well, just old school. I used to get into the Keurigs for a little bit, and then those things just kept breaking on me all the damn time. So we do fresh ground beans that we grind every morning, and then old school Mr. Coffee Maker. And for me, it's just a little creamer, a little French vanilla creamer.
All right. You have a favorite roaster down there in Clearview?
No,
No.
I don't.
All right.
I don't. Heritages does a wonderful thing for me at 6 a.m. That's usually when I'm in there.
Right on. Do you have it, Coach? Do you have any daily practices or rituals you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Jimmy Rollins?
Oh man, I used to do a lot of rituals. Now it's more routines for superstition stuff as a coach. I used to wake up at pretty much 5:30 every day and just go run 5 miles because I used to tell myself that I had to train while others were sleeping. Now my knees can't handle it and I'm old. So more or less, it's I try to have a ritual every day is coming into the room with the most positive attitude. I think a big thing is, and Jim Miller used to say this a long time, 10-time head coach, 10-time NCAA champion coach at Wartburg. No matter how bad your day is, you got to walk in and just exude confidence. Show these kids that no matter whatever shit's going on in their lives or anything else, we're gonna have a good day. We're gonna work hard, and I think that's really important. With the message that you send to your kids is your reflection and the way you act. I'd say that's a big thing I do every day.
How do you get yourself up for that? Because I try to do that, and some days are definitely better than others.
Um, for me, it's one of those things where I can walk in angry and I'll look at one of my assistant coaches and I'm like, you know what? But so and so hit that takedown yesterday that we've been working on. We're coming. Today's great. You just start chanting shit to yourself and fire it up. But you got to just find something. I always say if we can find one small thing that can get us amped up, we got to take it and run with it. It's find a way to talk to your team, even after a bad loss. It's always got to be, well, you know what? You can rip on them all, but the old school teacher sandwich theory, you got to find something good to say in there to keep them. I think from my time in my undergrad, that was one of the things I took the most was the old sandwich theory. And, I think that's important, just always finding something. You got to.
Amen. And shout out to Coach Miller too. He's also a former guest of ours as well.
Oh, I'm name dropping. I didn't even know all these.
Do it anyway.
Do it anyway.
Yeah.
That's how Rich and I communicate with each other. When we have feedback for each other, we always do sandwich way because I don't take criticism well at all. Rich will tell you I have thin skin, so you kind of have to give me a bunch of compliments and then hey, let's work on this. But if you just come at me with yo, you're not doing that right, you're looking for a fight. So yeah, I can appreciate that.
Sure.
Coach, what are you listening to right now? Music, podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
I usually will try to read some type of either a coaching book or I'd like to get into some war books. I think they're very similar in the approach to how to, get your troops together. Currently, I'm not reading anything. I'm teaching a kids how to build healthy fast food chains. So we're doing a lot on presentations for my classes with that. But to be honest, I listen to a lot of older stuff, very Jersey, Bon Jovi, Springsteen stuff mostly. For the past couple of years, I've gotten into like a Fallout Boy channel. They play a lot of stuff that I like to listen to and kind of just chill music, get me going a little bit. Yeah, old 90s stuff when I feel different. But I mean, it's not with 3 kids, I can't listen to much. So it's a lot of Disney Plus, and then I'm still old school where I like reviewing a lot of film. So for me, a good time is to watch 3 hours of film on just different wrestling and see what somebody's doing now and how we can develop new techniques and approaches to things. I'm one of those guys who likes to listen to a coach in the corner as well. I like to turn the volume up, see what they're saying to their athletes, how they're approaching things. I think the communication is always something we can always evolve in. So I'm pretty much just studying wrestling all the time.
You have a
Coach, you mentioned that. Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
You mentioned that communication in the corner Are you the kind of coach that is constantly giving feedback, or do you try to make your moments matter when you say something and let them wrestle on their own, but when they really need something, give it to them?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a talker. I talk to a lot of officials during it most of the time. Like, man, you blew that one, but I hope you get the next one. This way we can see you doing better. So I'm always saying something. But I think it depends on the athlete too. I think one thing is you can't be a one-way coach in this sport. Every kid's different. You got to be able to understand the minds, and that's really building a relationship with the kid. There's certain kids that if I'm chirping all the time, they're on fire. But if there's kids that if I'm chirping too much, their mind goes off. So it's shutting down for these kids and just learning how to develop. I always tell our kids, we're never going to try to change you and what you're good at. We're going to make you better as an overall wrestler. I don't try to preach one way wrestling. It's you got to be able to evolve in this. And coaching college and all those years and having kids from all over the country, that's something that I really learned quickly was, man, I got a great leg rider here, but he can't shoot worth a shit. So we're going to work on defense and just go behind it. And then I got this Cali guy who's lightning on his feet, but if we put him down, he can't get off the bottom. It's just all things like that. So it depends on the athlete for me. But I'll talk to the officials all day.
You ever hit him with, I remember my first wrestling match.
Oh, I do the one, man, you've been bad for 25 years. You got to retire. So yeah, that one I pulled out a few times now.
Yeah, it's funny. Jimmy and I, we watch stuff from back home, and we always, every once in a while, be like, did you see so-and-so is still reffing? Can you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
he was probably like in his 20s when I was wrestling. So, he seemed like he was old, but he was probably a lot younger than what we thought he was. And so now
Yeah.
he's probably, he's getting up there. He definitely needs to retire, but he's probably not as old as we think he is.
Yeah, it's a little bit different with some of it. I'm like, I tell my dad all the time. He's at a lot of matches. I'm like, man, he was old when I was wrestling. He's like, oh yeah, he was definitely old when you were wrestling. I'm like, geez, can't believe it. So yeah, it's different, but try to be respectful in it. It's just I used to take the college test for officials every year, and just so that I would know every rule that I was chirping at an official about, and I make sure I study that book over and over again to make sure page 3, paragraph 2, bylaw. I make sure I yell all that stuff out. So
it's important to know that stuff. Coach Bolin was on, and he was talking about last year at Nationals. He was 3 for 3 on throwing the brick, and he,
yeah,
he got
the first year the brick came out, my guy was wrestling a returning national champ in the quarters, and I threw the brick, and every other match was stopped, and it was a transition where we got a takedown, he got a reversal, and it was like all this stuff. And I was like, I need to challenge that. You didn't get the takedown right. A hand touch was at this time and this. So we went back to that starting point, and the kid was down. So nothing else happened after that. It was like a 10-minute challenge. And Costanzo comes up to me. He's like, what the hell did you challenge? And how did you get that? I'm like, this is a trade secret, coach. I'm not letting you in this one out, So and our guy ended up getting his first All-American that year, making the semis. So
nice.
Yeah.
Coach, last one we got for you.
Okay.
Lighthearted one. Maybe it's a food, maybe it's a beverage. You got some daughters. Maybe you're a closet Swiftie. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Snickers bars and Pepsi, man. It's a ritual for me, and I don't drink Pepsi any other time. But I ate a Snickers bar before every match I ever wrestled in high school and college, and I drank a Pepsi every day on those days. It was like my sugar rush to get me ready to go. So I always got a Pepsi near me when wrestling's going on. So every day we compete, my guys know that I'm going to have a 20-ounce Pepsi in my hand for a tournament or a duel or anything. That's kind of my thing. And then there's always some Snickers bars around me at some point. So.
All right.
Only on match days, though. That's the thing. But that's my big thing.
The traditional Snickers bar?
Yeah. I can't do. I mean, I'll die if I keep eating king size or anything like that. So
You ever had the 4-pack of the squares?
Oh well, I got it's a 1 pound block, one
Oh
Snickers
my
bar.
God.
Yeah, yeah. You get there's some place in Ocean City has them. So it's just a 1 pound giant monster Snickers bar. I mean, you got to eat it with a knife. But
Nice.
yeah, we did that once, and that was enough for me with that guy. So
Everything in moderation, right?
yeah, especially nowadays. Yeah. So
Coach, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation. I was at the States the year that they presented you when you won JUCOs, and you got they either announced you or you got to come out. But I remember I might have been my senior year. Was it '05 that you won JUCOs or '06?
no, it was '02 I won JUCOs. '06
'02.
I won NEIs.
Okay. I was there one year. Maybe it was '02 because that was my sophomore year, but I was there and that was always in the back of my head that hey, if you win JUCOs, they're gonna announce you and you can come out. I didn't win JUCOs, so you one up me there, but it was always a little bit of motivation. But I really enjoyed this conversation and the experience that you shared with us tonight, and I know that some of our listeners are really gonna get a lot out of it.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Coach, it's been an honor and pleasure. It was great to talk to you. It's always good to connect with Jersey guys and reminisce a little bit about the good old days and hear about the good things you got going on. And Jimmy and I always like to have these conversations as well too, because it gives us new schools and new programs to root for. So we'll add Clearview to the list, and we will be rooting hard for you guys next year, come district, region, and state time.
Yeah, I'll have to get some addresses from you guys. We'll send you guys some shirts.
We would love it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Coach Jimmy Rollins from Clearview High School. We are honored to have him on and chat about the program. Tomorrow we'll be back with another wrestler going belly to belly with Joe Jameson from Ursinus Wrestling. So we will see you tomorrow, same bat time.